Welcome to the Wiggly Podcast 138. Can you believe we've sat here 138 times, Rich?
It's hard to believe. Every time seems as new as the last.
It does, doesn't it?
It
I
does,
love Thursday.
Slightly uncanny, that.
Anyway, I'm Heather from Wiggly Wigglers and I'm joined today by...
Richard from Wiggly Wigglers.
And there's no farmer Phil.
Where's Phil today?
Phil is silaging.
Okay.
So he's cut his silage the other night, but a very sad thing happened and he was extremely fretty.
All right.
He went down to Campston, which is the farm where the cattle live in the summer, and he went into the shed to get his mower out.
Right.
And unfortunately, I can't say the words that it used, but it began with B and ended in D. Some bee ending in D had stolen his drive shaft.
Right.
And so that is the bit...
I shouldn't laugh.
That is the bit, dear listener, that is the twiddly thing from the mower to the tractor. So it's the long thing with plastic bits on the end to save you getting your hands in it that sort of twirls.
Right.
And it's worth about £900.
Right.
And he parked it in the shed and somebody had nicked it. Some BD person had nicked it.
You've got to nail everything down these days, haven't you?
And I must say it put him in a most tremendously bad mood. And the next morning he woke up in bed and he was going like this. And I said, will you stop sighing? And he said, I will sigh if I want to. And went.
How's that?
Bedtime tales from Wiggly Wigglers. Michael says, how did he know the thief was bald? I don't know. Anyway, that's where Farmer Phil is. He is silaging. So we all know what silage is now because we've spoken about it previously on the podcast.
Yep.
It is moithering up grass and fermenting it in a big black bag so that the cattle have something to eat in the winter. Anyway, on this week's show, Rich, what we'd like to do is apologise to Medusmita because she was the lady who kindly told us all about how farmers phone in and get information about their crops. And Dr. Madhav Mehra is who we're going to speak to today. And he, Rich, is from the World Council for Corporate Governance. Do you remember the Enron affair?
I do, yeah.
Well, this was the chap on CNN News who helped expose them.
Right.
Because he's from the World Council of Corporate Governance and they were the body that investigated it all and found that the Enron chappies were a little bit iffy.
Corrupt.
Yes. I met Dr. Madhav Mehra at the climate change conference in India. In fact, he was in charge of it all. And so let's go and hear from him now about climate change. I'm very pleased to have with me today Madhav Mehra. Welcome, Madhav, to the Wiggly Podcast. Now, I'd like to know what all your titles are. And I've read the best one of all, which is Guru of Substance.
Oh dear, yeah, I didn't know you knew all that. Anyway, I'm delighted to meet you, and I only hope that you enjoy the view for which we specially made effort to bring everybody around. What we're trying to do is we are trying to bring out a paradigmic change. So for that purpose, I do wear a number of hats. In the UK, I have two hats in the UK. The two registered companies. One is the World Council for Corporate Governance. I'm its president. That was registered around 2000. But before that, in 1997, we had the World Environment Foundation. My background is, of course, I don't know if you remember the 70s and 80s quality and quality management and total quality management. I founded the total quality management back in the early 80s. And I was the chairman of the World Quality Council in 1996. But then I moved around and I felt that if the product, even if the customer is satisfied by your product, but the product damages the environment, it damages the air that you live in and damages the nature, then it's not a quality product, even though it satisfies the customer. So we redefined quality, which should give a total eco-effective solution, not just for one customer, but for the whole society at large. That is how I moved into environment and then later to CSR and corporate governance. Now, in this conference, what we're trying to do is, we believe that one of the biggest flaws in the human thinking is that they always look at things piecemeal. They will take up, like, good old days. I did my PhD in management by objectives. I don't know, in the 70s that used to be a big thing. then we moved on to the total quality management, then ISO 9000, if you know, you see.
Yeah.
So we've done all those things bit by bit, but we haven't looked at life in a holistic way. We are now here projecting a growth model which we call Proactivate. Proactivate starts with pricing the natural capital, radically increasing the efficiency of natural resource.
What do you mean by that? Do you mean taking into account the value of our air or the value of our street?
What we are saying, let us say Canon manufactures cameras. They have a balance sheet of profit and loss account, assets, liabilities. Now in those things, they will always look at financial aspects. They do not realize how much of the trees have been destroyed, how much of the environment has been damaged, how much of the water has been spent in that. So all these issues, ecological contribution is not measured. So what we are now telling is that stock market should start looking at triple bottom line. They should also see how much of the human effort has gone into, how much of the human development is there or human attrition is there as a consequence. So whilst they are looking at financial aspects, there is no concept of the environmental and the social. So we want to bring those issues into the balance sheet. That's where we start by pricing the natural capital. We say that in this space, you've got a price for everything that you can see. But there's one thing without which you cannot live, and that is air. There's no price. Had there been a price, and people will start holding air, they will be very protective about air. They will make sure that there's clean air, just because we have a price. So we say that the model with which we started working through the times of Carlyle and all that needs to be changed. And that needs to be changed in two ways. First, that it must price natural capital. And the second is that there has to be no waste. There should be no waste. You go to the nature. I live just next to Regent's Park, those Nash terraces. Regent's Park has so much of birds, but you never see any one of the ducks or the geese. They die, but you never see them dead, because the nature has a cycle where, of course, one species waste is another's elixir, so they live on that. So we should also build in industry, housing, we should build systems whereby there should be no waste. So that's one of the fundamental things. Third thing, we should develop models whereby people don't, you see, one of the biggest problems in India, we have poverty. But the good thing about poverty is that we use only 6 tons per person per year of natural material. That is the steel, that is the wood, compared to 75 tons in the UK, 78 tons in US. Because in UK, every household has got sort of, husband, wife, maybe 2 children, they've got a refrigerator, they've got a washing machine. So they are putting that much impact on nature. Here, you will just go to villages, they just don't have even enough clothes, So they are no impact, I mean, I think that one of the greatest threats today is inequality. People have too much and too little. Now, if we want to bring them up rather than putting them down, then supposing we give them money, the first thing they want to buy a fridge.
I was just going to ask you that. They want a car.
They want a car. They want to have a bigger house. They want to have this. Now, if this is what growth is, then it's going to be catastrophic. So we need to therefore change the growth model and tell them that if they want to begin, they should work like Madonna. You see, what Madonna did when she went to Rajasthan, she did not acquire anything. All she did, she took a camel, she went to a camel's back, enjoyed that, dance, drama, colorful, because there is so much enjoyment. Take the IPL model in India, the cricket model, where they are, everybody is enjoying cricket, money is being, so much of money is being created, changing hands, but without cluttering the planet with products. So now if you have that many fridges, think of 1,000 million refrigerators, what will happen to India? So this is why it is just the right time to think of a model like Proactivate. Again, pricing natural capital. And it says that if there is a natural resource, there's a tree, use technology to take 100 times benefit out of it. So whether it is fossil fuel, whether it is renewable, take 100 times more benefit. Like in good old days, we used to have 100 watts bulb. We are doing it with 40 watts light, So like this, reduce it to even 3 watts. Then we are talking about organic living, proactive way. Organic living means go back to good old days. You know, one of the reasons Marks and Spencer is succeeding is because they give you a very tasty cucumber, very tasty cauliflower. Because good old days when I was growing up, we had no chemical fertilizer. We used to have cow dung, for fertilizer.
Very good stuff, that.
And that makes the thing so delicious, So we have forgotten the taste. The moment companies like now, even Tesco is doing organic food, people are prepared to pay much more for this. So we talk about not only organic food, but organic living. That when you want to even wear clothes, why must you make minimalism as a fashion statement? And which is happening. You must have seen good old days, people used to have huge big furnitures. They've gone away. IKEA has brought new concepts of very glass, transparent furniture, which doesn't take much of a space and all that. So look at minimalism as a lifestyle. Then adapt zero-based systems. Then sequester carbon by everybody planting trees, forestation, proactive, and T's turning to renewables.
What about growing your own food?
That's what we're talking about when we talk about organic living.
Okay.
It becomes part of organic living.
Yeah.
Then forestation I mentioned. Then we talked about turning renewables, that everybody grows their own energy also, solar systems. Look at the solar technology. If they can improve upon, make thin cell technology, you'll be surprised. Africa problem will be solved. Africa will become richer than Europe because solar energy is far more powerful. If we can make it cheap, then Europe will actually be taking energy from Africa because they have far more sun. So we are able to use the sunshine in that case. So then innovating business models like what Bridgestone is doing. Bridgestone has stopped selling tires in Europe. What they do is they hire you a tire and they charge you on the usage because of IT. Two revolutionary innovations which have taken place. One is the DNA. By DNA now all those crimes are being sorted out through DNA. DNA helps them determine the person's like anything. And the second thing is, of course, the biotechnology is also going to be a big thing. So GM. At the moment, there's a lot of controversy, but we must realize that human ingenuity is unlimited, and they will find a way to deal with how to deal in the best way biotechnology. And the point which I was coming at, that we need to think of innovating models which are something where we use IT, the information technology. It's because of the information technology that the company which is hiring you the tire is able to find out, they are able to track how much of the mileage you've covered, and they charge you on that basis. So poor man can buy a tire. Now supposing I live in one of the congestion areas and I can't afford to use the car every day, and I don't need to, so I use it for the weekends. So why should I pay? I mean, my use of tire is much less. So you pay on the basis of usage, which is a much better approach for even poor people. And you don't have to go for installments. You can pay simply on the basis of your usage.
It's interesting that you bring up car tires, because as Wiggly Wigglers, we are always encouraging people to grow their own veggies and close their waste loops. And in our office we compost. But the interesting thing, the interesting thing is that we just told them that those tires, if they're not Bridgestone, belong to them. So when they change their tires on their car, they must take those home and grow potatoes in them.
So you can't use it. But we're talking about innovating business models. Like there's a company called Interface Corporation in America. They have made a huge amount of money, £1 billion, by not selling but hiring out carpets. What they do, they take away your carpet. They don't sell you the new carpet. They take away your old carpet and recycle it and bring you a new carpet. And where they only put in 20% of the new fabric, 80% is yours, and the nature is so much better that way. So these are the kind of models which we are thinking. And then we say vigorously pursue models, mechanisms where people who pollute are punished and those who don't, they are rewarded. Now, I personally think that, I don't know how you react to this, that 50 years later, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will laugh at us. They will say, look at these people, they used to have income tax. but not eco-tax. I say that we should. In fact, this suggestion which I've given even to David Cameron and his chap George Osborne is working on it. He is thinking in terms of eco-tax. So I said, why should people be taxed on income? It's ridiculous. You should tax on the usage of environment. Whatever environment each one of us using, as you tread, you use measure it and tax on that basis.
Yeah, but isn't that already happening? Because energy is money. If I use more energy, I believe that the people that are probably having the least impact are probably the poorest and probably the ones that are using less. Aren't we already got an eco-tax?
But that's making the whole thing iniquitous. These are the people who are suffering most and they don't have the money, So it's making the whole thing very inequitable and insidious, And
so in Madev's grand plan, how will it be from today? What will we do?
Well, what we will do, first of all, is going to be wear proactivate.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. So that we are reminded each time what we're supposed to do. There has to be some symbol. So that is a symbol. We're going to form a global human chain here today so that everybody thinks about it. 5th of June, there is a World Environment Day. We are trying to tell the whole country to do that on that day. And then we say, proactivate, you come up to the proactive way. We vigorously pursue market mechanisms. A is what you did today, activating women and children. They have to drive the change. T is for training people to eco-innovate. Eco-innovate is every time I do something, if I manufacture something, I should say, have I used a minimum of material? Minimize material intensity, minimize toxicity, minimize energy intensity, and maximize recyclability. So each time we want to think on those issues and train people to continually think about them. And E, instead of talking, execute.
Thank you very much. I'll go and do that in a minute. And I thank you for your time and I wish you well. And I'd like to thank you for myself and on behalf of Wiggly Wigglers for inviting us to come and speak at this conference. We found it very valuable and very interesting.
Thank you very much. We enjoyed, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy more having you with us.
Thank you.
And more interaction on these issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyway, before Phil went silage in, here's a bit we recorded earlier. Is there any more then? Because that's obviously a response from our request for review. So thank you very much.
There are more. There's one here, Best of British, another 5-star review by Jim Karma. Marvellous.
Oh, you can't say that.
Wherever I may be, usually on some motorway on the way to a glamorous industrial estate somewhere, tales from the sofa transport me to rural nirvana. It's not just the topics, but the language and even the voices that gently dull the monotony of the tarmac and replace it with mud, bugs, green, and even the occasional ripe odour. Thank you for your ability to generate a virtual green and pleasant land amid the daily grind. Fabulous. And there's another one here, Interesting Stuff.
It won't be if all we have is reviews on the show.
I should just read it. One more I had. Interesting Stuff by Abby and Cole. I don't think we've never read this one before. We love hearing Farmer Phil explaining his take on things and the farming calendar. Looking out at the fields is never the same again. Also interesting bits about eco-living and other ethical dilemmas from 2 armchair welly wearers.
Oh, that's nice,
great.
isn't it? Thank you very much for those reviews. You are stars. And if you want to do even more for us, tell your mates and get us a slot on the radio, hey? Now, you've had your egos massaged quite enough. But
Rich
there
is purring, look.
Purring.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
As every comfortable cat does.
Where are the dogs?
Oh, they're roguing. They're
Right.
with the roguing gang.
What are the roguing gang roguing?
The roguing gang are picking off-types out of our seed crops so that within the breeding of, say, a wheat plant, you'll get, when it multiplies, you'll get off-types so that it might be tall or a different colour or something like that.
Can we have those for the floristry?
Well, not really, because they put them on the floor, but you're having other ones for the floristry.
Yeah, we're harvesting, Rich, wheat and barley to go in the bouquets.
Right, that makes sense.
Because they look much nicer, even if you dry them now, they look much nicer than if you let them go ripe. and then use them, because the
no.
barley sticks up and the wheat's got a better sort of shape to it.
Absolutely. I love barley. It's stunning. I mean, there's nothing better than a field full of barley when the wind just catches the tops of it, and you've just got that swishing, the way the contrast of the colours, as it bends and ripples across the field.
And all the different varieties, the awns, the spikes on the top of an ear of barley, they all have different colours. So some are really green, and some go right round to nearly black, and you have all the sort of reds in between depending on the variety. So the variety just out here, which is called Wint Malt, is a very green one. So it just looks like a sort of gently waving sea of green.
I had the opportunity to go around a brewery, a farm microbrewery the other day.
No surprises there then.
Can we make some beer?
You can do. The last time I tried to make beer was when I was a small boy, and it was legal in as much that I was following the recipe, and it went fine until it came to the point of putting it in a demijohns, and I made the mistake of putting the rubber bung in the top of the demijohn too tight and too soon, and about a fortnight later in the middle of the night there was a most monumental explosion from in the larder, and there was glass and beer all over the inside of the larder.
Have you ever made beer?
I've never made beer, Never, ever made it.
It's like making a cup of tea. It's exactly like making a cup of tea. So you add your...
Tea bag?
Yes!
Boiling water?
You add your barley and your boiling water, then your hops, and then you add everything else afterwards. And you mash it all up and ferment it. It was brilliant seeing a microbrewery. It was just in a tiny, tiny shed, like the edge of a grain store, and he was making 4,000 litres at a time.
Well, that was great, Phil.
Oh, you all friendly now then?
Yeah.
Now you had a bit of beer, didn't you, from Farmer Phil?
I did.
To make up for that bit of a row on
I
podcast
think
135.
Well, Phil, because he's genuinely, he's a nice chap, isn't he, Phil? Really, he's got a big heart, and I think he did feel a little bit guilty about abusing one of his employees, and consequently gave me some beer. But oddly, the beer had a slightly bitter aftertaste as well.
Well, I must say, Rich, usually you don't win on the Farmer Phil versus Ricardo front, but this time...
Well, that's open for debate.
Well, there's been plenty of feedback this time, and here we are. Some people have been right put out by that podcast. But here, Nigel Newell says, "Thanks for the entertaining and informative podcast. I'm listening every week. I cannot help pitching in after the latest ambush is the right word. Richard was definitely on the back foot, but in his defence, he's no hypocrite. It sounds like he's been raising his sheep the best way to the best of his knowledge, and he will probably be looking into vaccines for next year and doing it the best way then. We can't all be experts overnight, but do the best we can at the time. So, misguided at worst. Cheers, Nigel." And there were several of those, so thanks to everybody who emailed in.
Well, it's an interesting one. It's nice that we have these arguments. I mean, it might have been a little bit more... I think it was too heated, really. I'm not even sure I was misguided, to be very honest. I think I'm completely happy with the decision I made at the time. Because the other thing that did occur to me, not that I want to dwell on this now, but the whole expression hypocrite, wouldn't that apply that I expressly state myself as being organic? And of course, I've never done that. I agree with the principles of organic, and I will always do so until the day I die, purely because organic to me means alive and biodynamic, I guess.
Of course, that's not what it means these days. It means soil association approved.
It's been adulterated, hasn't it, the expression?
I think it's a toughie.
It's a toughie. But I had another email from someone called Linda Murdoch, who, interestingly, she said that what we shouldn't do is sort of kowtow to listener demands. We had a funny situation, didn't we, that Neil Foley, aka Podchef, had said, "Great argument, guys," and whatnot, and thanks very much for that, just what the show needed and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we were talking just generally about things, about how we've never really responded to listener requests in terms of subject matter. We've chosen our own thing, and we'll continue to do that, and suddenly you threw a spanner in the works and decided we should have another row.
Well, the strangest thing is, you see, I've had a lot of grief from listeners about, and Karen put in the blog that I'd put this spanner in the works and that I'd ambushed you. But I can tell you exactly what happened, and that was I was listening to the podcast about you enthusing about your sheep when I was in India.
Yes.
And I said to Farmer Phil, casually, is Heptavac P organic then? Do you use it for organic? And he said, I don't know. I don't think you can, but maybe you can because animal welfare comes up high. And so when we did the running order for that particular show, I didn't even think about it. And then you started going on about your sheep wonderfully again, you see. And I thought, I've just remembered it.
Yes,
I'm going to ask it. But
you
don't believe me.
You're very naughty.
But you don't believe me, but I really thought that you could easily come back and say, no, it is organic.
Yeah, I still don't know.
No, there we are. But anyway, here we are. Here is some feedback on iTunes. And this is from Lulu Mama. And she's given us 4 stars.
Michael was saying about this morning, 4 stars. She says, apparently, doesn't she say something? Start by saying she loves the podcast, but she's only given us 4 stars.
Yeah, Lulu, if you could just go back and, rethink. Because what you've actually put is, I love your podcast, but I had to stop listening to it on my iPod in public when I laughed out loud listening to the chat on the sofa about Farmer Phil putting bokashi on his food to cure flatulence. I don't know if I'd heard it correctly, but it made me roar.
What, putting food on your bokashi?
I think it was you.
What, raw? In what sense?
Like a lion.
I see, I know.
Anyway, next week we've got Jodie coming up on the show because it's sadly Jodie's last day, so we'll hear about all the things that she's going to get up to in her new career. But just before we go, we sent out an e-news about pest control because it's ladybird and aphid time. We've got lots of ladybirds.
Right.
Have you got lots of aphids?
No, I haven't got many aphids at all this year.
Well, maybe that's why we've got lots of ladybirds.
It's funny, isn't it? Well, it might sound ridiculous, but there's some truth in that. It does seem that when you've got tons of ladybirds, there are very few aphids to feed them, and tons of aphids, there are no ladybirds to eat them.
Anyway, I put out an e-news explaining the different methods of pest control that we got, the slug traps, the nemaslug, the ladybirds, and the vintage wasp trap. The farmers in Portugal used to use these old glass things to keep the wasps and pests off their crops, and we've managed to get hold of a whole pile of them and thought they would be really handy for when you've got your lunch outside and that nasty wasp comes and disturbs you. So off we sent it out, and we had several quite put out folks emailing back, and they said, hi Wriggly Wrigglers. Well, first of all, it's Wiggly Wigglers, but no matter. I'm concerned about the negative press you've given the humble wasp. Below you advocate the natural pest controllers, but I think the wasps should be included in them. They eat aphids and caterpillars and rotting fruit. I found they can easily be kept away from areas you eat outdoors by offering them some jam on a saucer or similar sweet food somewhere not too near where you're going to eat. Doing this a few hours before will attract them to the jam and not your food. It's worked for me several years. I like wasps, and I think they are as entitled to share our planet as much as we are, and are one of our natural pest controllers. You have some fab stuff in your catalogue, and I have been spreading the word about you. Please do not make me reconsider. I look forward to hearing from you, Jenny. And then there's another one too.
That's a great point. Well, we have talked about wasps before, haven't we?
We have.
Several times probably, about the significance that they have in our natural world. But they are quite hostile, wasps. They're not a pleasant animal. They do serve a purpose, but they're not liked, are they?
They're not. And there's we have Henry who says, I was sorry to see you're offering a wasp trap for sale, stating they're a positive nuisance. It might kill hornets, young queens, as well as worker wasps. Hornets are only making a comeback from years of habitat destruction and persecution. I found it quite amusing how you state how good ladybirds and lacewings are at controlling pests and encourage them into our gardens, but just below you advise us to buy a wasp trap to destroy what is probably one of the most effective insect pest controllers in the garden. Wasps and hornets capture large numbers of grubs, caterpillars and flies to feed their young, which in turn removes so many of the so-called pests from our gardens. I look forward to your comments. Sorry, that was from Kevin Henry. Anyway, I thought about it and I thought they've got a really good point.
Yeah.
And yet, to my mind, it's all about balance. And I don't think there's anything two-faced about encouraging things, but also sometimes killing them. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
For example, with badgers, personally, I think they should be controlled, but certainly not obliterated. With squirrels, the same thing goes, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
And so I updated the website to say, don't just buy it, think about where you're going to use it and if you really need it. And emailed them back to say they got some great points and certainly a balance is needed. But we need to take responsibility for our own gardens, don't we?
it's nice to have this feedback from people, and everybody's got a slightly different take on things. I mean, we did leave a massive great hornet's nest in the hot tub last year, didn't we?
We did.
Well, that is underneath the hot tub.
We did.
I mean, I must admit, I was kind of up against it. Every week somebody would come up to me and say, what are we going to do about this hornet's nest, Richard, in the garden? And I'd sort of say, well, look, it's fine, let's leave it there. And in actual fact, whilst you weren't able to use the hot tub, the hornet's nest, they did achieve their ambitions of kind of finishing the colony, and the new queens will have gone off and find somewhere suitable to spend their winters. And
I was all for it until the day 4 got in my hair.
Yeah, the problem was, I mean, I did walk past, but isn't it interesting that we walked past that hornet's nest and they landed on us a couple of times, and one landed on the side of me, and I was kind of slightly freaked out about it, and we had a group of people in the garden showing them around, saying, look at all these lovely hornets here, and they landed, but they didn't sting, did they? I think one just scratched your forehead maybe a little bit.
Yeah, but I was actually jumping round and round the garden, smacking my head, and Farmer Phil was saying, no, they're not in there. And I could hear, the whole of my head felt like it was a buzzy bee, because it was going, bzzz, and I could feel them in amongst my hair.
Yeah, it's difficult with your hair, isn't it?
Of course.
Could be all sorts of things. If we were a rider, I heard a buffalo in there, and you wouldn't be able to see him.
Of course, you haven't got that problem, have you?
No, I haven't.
Old
I haven't
Ginger.
got that problem. No.
Anyway, let's go. Should we end? Should we leave it?
Yes.
Should we see you next week?
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.